As discussed in the video of the first period in this series, since the opening of the Silk Road by Emperor 156 BC to 87 BC, of Han Dynasty, 205 BC to 219 AD, cultural influences, including music, from outside began to influence Chinese culture. China was very open to the presence of foreign cultures. And with the capital, Chang'an, of Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907, reached the center position in the world, the massive absorption of foreign cultures began. Please refer to the second period video in this series for a discussion of Chinese music during Tang Dynasty. After Ming Dynasty, 1368 to 1644, collapsed. The Manchurians succeeded in colonizing China under Qing Dynasty, 1644 to 1912. Due to Japanese pirate rampant intrusion, as well as to block the smuggling of opium by the British. For the sake of internal security, Qing Dynasty closed its doors to outside, so that the development of Chinese music was still in its third period, although it did not mean that there was no progress at all. For 28 years, Chen Menglei, 1650 to 1741, an official of Qing Dynasty in Fujian Province, edited 古今图书集成 or 古今图书汇编 or Encyclopedia of All Time, which was the largest collection of and the most informative encyclopedia, even 3 to 4 times larger than the largest English encyclopedia. In 1726 the encyclopedia was printed typographically and encouraged the publication of encyclopedias in other fields, including music. Hua Qiuping, 1784 to 1859, compiled 南北二派秘本琵琶谱真传 or original secret compilation of national 琵琶 or Chinese lute, or abbreviated as 华氏谱 or 华 surnames scores. In Baroque era, around 1600 to 1760, in Europe, musical instruments developed. The music emphasized more solos, counterpoints and rhythms with more emotion. The harmonizations went further towards tonal system in major and minor keys. Vocal music continued, also in new forms, including oratorios, cantatas and anthems. Claudio Monteverdi, 1567 to 1643, and Arcangelo Corelli, 1653 to 1731, also initiated operas. Church music and folk music were still very clearly separated, but folk music was starting to dominate the development of music with its appearances in opera houses. Gradually, the notation was also getting more detailed and accurate to express the composer's work according to what they meant. One of the famous composers in the early Baroque era, 1600 to 1640, was Claudio Monteverdi with his work L'Orfeo, 1607. The music still carried the monophonic tonal style of the Renaissance era, 1450 to 1600, though its harmony was already more dissonant. One of the famous composers in the mid-Baroque era, 1640 to 1680, was Henry Purcell, 1659 to 1695, with his work Dido and Aeneas, around 1688. The music began to be specifically aimed at certain musical instruments, especially the violin. The Stradivari family was famous for its production of musical instruments, especially the violin made by Antonio Stradivari, 1644 to 1737, which is worth millions of US dollars today. Famous composers in the late Baroque era, around 1680 to 1750, were Johann Sebastian Bach, 1685 to 1750, George Frideric Handel, 1685 to 1759, Antonio Vivaldi, 1678 to 1741, and Georg Philipp Telemann, 1681 to 1767. Up to their big names, also with English-speaking target audiences, I assume you know them and their works well. Therefore, from this point forward, I will focus more on the development of Chinese music, while the development of European music will be for comparison. Since 1700, Baroque music had progressed fastly, encompassing new tonal polyphonic, continuous music flow, a focus on chords, more complex musical forms, concertos, fugues, oratorios, preludes, cantatas and operas, and the use of new musical instruments, organ, harpsichord and violin. The piano was invented around 1702. Tome Pereira, 1645–1708, Portuguese mathematician and missionary, taught Western music theory to Emperor Kangxi, 1654–1722. Emperor Qianlong, 1711–1799, set up a Western music group in the palace, using violin, cello, contrabass, woodwind, clarinet, xylophone, accordion, and ancient lyre. On the stage, the players were equipped with Western wigs. Famous composers in the European pre-classic era, around 1730 to 1770, were the two sons of Johann Sebastian Bach, Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, 1714 to 1788, and Johann Christian Bach, 1735 to 1782. The music began to leave polyphonic texture complexity. Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach wrote the essay, The True Art of Playing Keyboard Instruments, and was recognized by Joseph Haydn, 1732–1809, and Ludwig van Beethoven, 1770–1827. Joseph Haydn, and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, 1756–1791, liked Sinfonia in G minor, Opus 6, No. 6 by Johann Christian Bach. The music market in the European classical era, around 1750 to 1820, shifted to the nobility and the bourgeoisie. The music was characterized by contrasting emotions and themes, variations in rhythm, simple and clear texture, slow movement of dynamics, also well-balanced and catchy melodies. The forms included sonatas, themes and variations, rondos and minuets, chamber music and trios and symphonies. After 1775, Haydn, Mozart and Beethoven replaced the harpsichord with the popular piano. The personal musical styles in this classic era began to be distinguished from the individual composers. Haydn's popular symphonies had aliases. I like very much Surprise, Symphony No. 94, second movement that used full power in just one beat. In Farewell, Symphony No. 45. The performers left the stage one by one when the performance getting to the end. Mozart's symphonic style was unique. Mozart was a close friend of Haydn and they exchanged a lot of musical views, so their later symphonic styles resembled each other. The development of European music was distinguished from Chinese music, particularly in forms and harmonization. While Chinese music did not emphasize harmonization, the development of European music harmonization progressed towards more dissonance over eras, such as mentioned earlier, that Monteverdi music, while still carrying the monophonic tonal style of the Renaissance era, was already more dissonant in harmony. Likewise, Mozart was the first composer to end a song in a minor chord. By the way, many of Mozart's personal handwriting works are still well kept in museums. You may see that his unfinished work stopped vertically in the distribution of the musical instruments. On the other hand, Chinese music style gave all the required room for personal improvisation. The music notation was not as complete, detailed or rigid as Westerns. It only noted some important notes between the beats and the musician could then fill in some notes in between the notated notes. While Western tonal harmony resembled layers that the tenor never crossed above alto and so on, with different timbre and the lack of very low pitches among different instruments, the freedom of individual performers resembled weaved sound Chinese music. Beethoven was the first to claim that music was an art, made a breakthrough that music was no longer a family profession, incorporated mood changes into music, and his Symphony No. 5 is the only work in the music realm that managed to put the theme in all over the bars in the music. Therefore, people call Beethoven as the father of classical music. He taught music to the king's children. His last work, after he experienced deafness, Symphony No. 9, was recognized as his best. And it was in this work that he proved the necessity of interaction between musicians and the conductor. The emotional flow that Beethoven put into his music was the trigger of the European Romantic era, 1820 to 1900, where the use of such feeling developed further with the use of more dissonant harmonies. Please wait for the next video in this series for the continuation into the Romantic era. That's all. And thank you for watching.